The maid confronted Millionaire's cruel girlfriend. His reaction after seeing it all made her cry. The Anderson mansion, late afternoon. Sunlight spilled through the wide glass windows, bathing the elegant living room in golden hues that only made it feel colder. On the polished marble floor, a glass rolled to a stop, drops of orange juice staining the pristine surface. Beside it, a pair of white designer shoes were ruined, marked with sticky yellow blotches. "You worthless maid! You can't even keep your child under control?" Victoria's voice sliced through the room like a knife. She yanked Maria's uniform so hard that the fabric stretched and tore. Her manicured nails dug into Maria's shoulder as if she wanted to leave scars not only on her skin, but on her dignity. Maria fought to stay calm, her voice trembling yet polite. "I'm sorry, Ms. Hale. Emily didn't mean to. I'll clean it up right away." 8-year-old Emily stood pressed against the wall, her wide eyes shimmering with fear. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry." Victoria spun around, her eyes blazing with contempt. "Didn't mean to? These shoes cost $2,000. Do you think an apology from a useless little brat can fix that?" Maria quickly stepped in front of her daughter. "She's just a child. Please don't—" Before she could finish, Victoria raised her hand toward Emily. In that split second, Maria's motherly instinct ignited. She threw herself forward. Victoria's palm landed across Maria's cheek, a sharp crack echoing through the room. Maria staggered, her lip bleeding. Emily screamed, "Mom!" and burst into tears, clutching her mother tightly. Victoria exhaled with satisfaction, her eyes gleaming. "Pathetic. Women like you should know your place and stay silent." Suddenly, a deep, commanding voice cut through the tension. "What the hell is going on here?" James Anderson stood in the doorway, his suit still crisp after a long day at work, his briefcase slipping from his hand to the floor. His eyes scanned the scene, the glass on the floor, the stained shoes, Maria with blood at her lip, and Emily trembling in her mother's arms. "James, you're home early." Victoria's expression shifted instantly. She rushed toward him, clutching his arm. "You won't believe this. She disrespected me, and that child ruined my shoes." Maria lowered her gaze, pressing her palm to her wounded cheek. Emily sobbed into her mother's side. James's eyes locked on Victoria. His voice was calm but icy. "What did you just do to Maria?" Victoria let out a nervous laugh, feigning offense. "I was just teaching that brat a lesson in manners, and this stupid maid got in the way." James took a step closer, his tone sharp. "Teaching manners? By raising your hand to a child?" The room fell silent. Maria trembled, barely daring to breathe. Emily hiccuped in the corner. Victoria forced a high-pitched laugh. "You misunderstood. I only meant to scare her, that's all." But James wasn't listening anymore. His gaze fixed on Maria, her bleeding lip, her weary eyes, the quiet strength in her posture. Something inside him twisted painfully. The grand living room felt heavier than ever. Maria was still trembling after the slap, her lip bleeding. Emily clung tightly to the back of her mother's blouse, her tiny hands gripping as if letting go meant losing the only anchor she had in life. James stood frozen, his heart tightening at the sight. He had never seen Maria so fragile. Usually she worked quietly, never complained, never showed exhaustion. Yet now, before his eyes, she stood with reddened eyes, trying to stay calm, while her whole body betrayed fear. "Maria, how long has this been happening?" James asked, his voice low, laced with both anger and sorrow. Maria lowered her gaze. "It doesn't matter, Mr. Anderson. I'm fine." "Fine?" James frowned, stepping closer. He gently lifted her chin, and the red mark on her cheek twisted something deep inside him. "Don't lie to me. How long?" Maria exhaled shakily, as though the weight inside her chest could no longer be hidden. 4 months since she moved into this house. James froze. 4 months. 4 months Maria had suffered in silence just to keep her job. Why didn't you tell me? Tears welled in Maria's eyes, but she forced them back. I need this job. Emily needs school. I can't lose everything over a bruise. Hearing that, Emily burst into tears. Mom, I don't need school. I just need you. The innocence of her words shattered James's heart. He pulled out a handkerchief, gently pressing it to Maria's wound. You're not fine. And from this moment on, you won't endure another second of this. I swear. Maria shook her head weakly. But sir, I don't want to cause trouble for your career. Victoria is... James cut her off, his voice sharp. Don't mention her name to me again. That woman has no power here anymore. Emily lifted her tear-streaked face to James. Mr. James, are you going to send us away? James knelt down to her level. Never. No one will ever drive you and your mom out of this house. This is your home too. In that moment, Maria felt something inside her crack open. For so long, she had built walls, enduring everything alone, never letting anyone into her wounded world. But now, James's gaze made her want to believe, just once. He spoke softly again. Tomorrow we'll talk about your job. You deserve fair treatment, Maria. For now, the most important thing is that you and Emily rest. Maria's throat tightened. She was so used to carrying her burdens alone that hearing words of protection felt both comforting and terrifying. She didn't want to hope, but James's eyes planted a fragile seed of faith in her heart that maybe things could change. Victoria remained in the center of the living room, her face flushed with a mix of anger and panic. James, are you really going to believe her? A poor maid has no credibility. You know me. I would never do something crude like that. James narrowed his eyes, his gaze ice cold. I just watched you raise your hand to a child. Do you think I'm blind? Victoria stepped closer, her tone shifting to pleading. James, I just lost my temper. I love you. I only want what's best for you. Someone like Maria doesn't belong in this house, and she certainly doesn't deserve to be near you. Rage burned inside James, though his voice stayed low and dangerous. Doesn't deserve? She threw herself in front of her daughter to protect her from you. And you? All you did was humiliate and belittle. Don't talk to me about love, Victoria. Love is never built on cruelty. Victoria trembled, then quickly hardened, her eyes sharp as blades. Have you forgotten who I am? My family could ruin you in an instant. Don't be foolish enough to throw everything away for a maid. James strode toward her, each word deliberate, final. I would rather lose everything than keep someone like you by my side. Get out of my house, now. Victoria's eyes widened, her lips trembling with fury. She snatched her designer purse, stomping her heels against the floor. You'll regret this, James. No one will ever love you like I do. Leave, James growled. The door slammed shut, leaving behind a void of silence. Maria clutched Emily tightly, her eyes wide open, while James stood there, chest heaving, yet his gaze resolute. When the door slammed shut, silence swallowed the mansion. Maria still clutched Emily as if afraid the world might tear them apart. James stood there for a long moment, chest heaving, before finally exhaling. The fury in his eyes dimmed, replaced by something gentler. He turned to them, voice low and careful, as though speaking too loudly might shatter what little peace remained. Have you eaten dinner yet? Emily shook her head. I'm hungry. A rare smile tugged at his lips. Good. Let's order pizza. What kind do you like? Maria's tense shoulders loosened slightly. Emily gave a small, shy smile. Pepperoni. Soon the three of them were sitting around the kitchen table. Emily chatted about school between bites, laughter slipping out, her eyes brighter than before. Maria remained quiet, but inside a strange new feeling swelled. safety. James watched them both quietly, then his voice lowered into something almost vulnerable. "Maria, I used to be like Emily. My mother was a janitor. While she scrubbed floors, I sat in strangers' kitchens doing homework, pretending not to hear when people looked down on her." Maria froze. He rarely spoke about personal matters. "Maybe that's why I built my company," he continued, "so my mom would never have to kneel and scrub floors again." He gave a bitter smile. "So I understand, at least in part, what you're going through." Maria stared down at her calloused hands. "All I want is a better future for Emily. I'm studying business management online. It's slow, but one day I hope to open a restaurant, using my mother's recipes." James tilted his head, genuinely surprised. "A restaurant?" She nodded softly. "My mother once ran a little eatery back in Mexico. The smell of her mole could fill the whole street. After she passed, I promised myself one day I would carry on that dream, even if it felt impossible." Respect filled James's eyes. Slowly he said, "That's not just a dream, that's a plan, and I believe you can make it real." Maria gave a faint smile, though caution still guarded her gaze. She wasn't ready to believe fully, but for the first time in years, she didn't feel entirely alone. Outside, Los Angeles buzzed endlessly, but in that kitchen, 3 people shared not only a simple meal, but the beginning of something greater. Maria didn't know the storm wasn't over. Yet tonight, at least, she and her daughter were allowed to dream that tomorrow might be different. The next few days passed with a fragile sense of peace, but it didn't last long. Maria began to notice strange, unsettling things. It started at the bank. She had applied for a small loan to cover her next semester of online classes. Her credit history was spotless, yet the bank manager avoided her eyes, saying coldly, "I'm sorry, we can't approve this. There are concerns regarding your reputation." Reputation? Maria froze, unable to comprehend. Then came Emily's school. One afternoon she was summoned to the principal's office. The woman looked at her with pity. "We received a complaint stating Emily doesn't actually reside at the listed address, and there are photographs from the science fair. They suggest your relationship with Mr. Anderson is inappropriate." Maria felt the ground collapse beneath her feet. "That's not true. I live in his house because of work, and James only helps Emily with her education." But the principal shook her head. "I have to investigate as protocol." Before she could recover, Maria received an email from her online university. They informed her that a complaint had been filed, accusing her of plagiarism in her final essay. To Maria, it felt like a fatal blow. Every grade, every sleepless night studying, was now under threat of being erased. Everywhere, she began to feel the stares. At the grocery store, old acquaintances avoided greeting her. Some parents at school whispered behind her back. One even sneered aloud, "Women like you only know how to cling to rich men." Maria shrank inward, clutching Emily in silence. At night, once her daughter was asleep, she cried quietly. She had endured hardship for years, but this time was different. This time, Emily's future was on the line, and Maria felt she was breaking. One evening, James found her packing. "Where are you going?" Maria wiped her tears quickly. "I can't stay here. They're destroying me, and the next thing will be taking Emily away. If I distance myself from you, maybe she'll be safe." James's fists clenched, his eyes blazing with determination. "Maria, you're not going anywhere. This isn't just your fight anymore. They've made it mine, and I won't let them win." He pulled out his phone, dialing. "Raul, I need you. Dig into everything about Victoria Hale and her family. Leave no stone unturned." On the other end, a steady voice replied, "I'll do it. But Anderson, be ready. The Hales have power, and they don't play fair." James's answer was firm. "I don't need fair. I need the truth." Maria stood still, her heart trembling but flickering with a fragile hope. For the first time in her life, she wasn't fighting alone. And yet, a deeper fear whispered inside her. This battle wouldn't just decide her future, but also James's and Emily's small, precious life. That night, after Raoul left, the house fell quiet again. Maria stood by the window, questions churning inside her. James walked over, placing a warm cup of tea in her hands. "Maria," he asked softly, "what's on your mind?" She looked up at him, hesitation clouding her eyes. Then the question slipped out before she could stop it. "Why are you being so kind to my daughter and me?" James paused, then gave a bittersweet smile. "Because you remind me that goodness still exists in this world. Because you make me feel more human than all the millions sitting in my bank account ever could." Maria froze, her heartbeat racing. In his eyes she saw no pity, only rare, unshakable sincerity. The following week, while Raoul worked tirelessly on the investigation, life in the mansion began to shift. James was suddenly more present. When Emily spiked a fever in the middle of the night, he was the one who prepared warm cloths, changing them as Maria grew too exhausted. He sat by the little girl's bed, reading her a story until sleep carried her away. "She's so much like you," James whispered once Emily dozed off. "Strong, yet fragile." Maria said nothing, but her heart brimmed with emotions. Comforting, yet terrifyingly hard to contain. During the day, while Emily was at school, Maria studied business and culinary books. James noticed and gestured toward his vast library. "Why stay in the kitchen? Use the library. It has better light and plenty of books that could help you." For the first time, Maria stepped into that grand room. Her fingers trembled as she touched the towering shelves. Amid the stillness, she opened book after book, taking careful notes. Sometimes James entered quietly, setting a cup of coffee beside her without a word, offering only a smile. In the evenings, they shared the kitchen. Maria experimented with her mother's recipes, and James became the reluctant taste tester. He winced at the spice, laughed when it was too salty, and praised her wholeheartedly when the dish came out just right. In those small, ordinary moments, an invisible thread began to weave between them. Maria no longer saw James as just the wealthy employer, and James no longer saw her as just the housekeeper. Between them grew something unnamed, yet strong enough to change everything. A week passed in a fragile balance of warmth and tension. Each evening, after Emily had gone to bed, Maria and James would sit together in the kitchen or the library. She scribbled notes on recipes, while he quietly observed, occasionally offering business insights that surprised her. Amid the scent of food and the rustle of pages, they shared silences that needed no words. For the first time, Maria felt she wasn't only protecting Emily, she had a shoulder she could lean on. But while they carved out moments of peace, Raoul worked tirelessly in the shadows. One evening, he returned with a thick leather case. The weight of it thudded onto the table. "James, I've got everything you need," Raoul said, his voice low. "Proof of the funds her father embezzled, and testimonies about Victoria's abuse." The atmosphere shifted instantly. Maria clutched her notebook, her heart racing. James glanced at her, his eyes steady as if to say, "This is the moment." He nodded to Raoul. "Thank you. I'll take it from here." Maria whispered, "What will you do with all this?" James drew a deep breath, his answer measured, each word deliberate. "I won't let them destroy you any longer. It's time the world saw the truth." Maria said nothing. Fear still gnawed at her chest, but along with it bloomed a fragile faith. For once, she wouldn't be facing the darkness alone. That evening, the grandest hotel in Los Angeles glittered with light. The annual Anderson Technologies Gala gathered hundreds of business leaders, politicians, and journalists. Chandeliers sparkled, glasses clinked, fake smiles filled the air. Victoria entered as if nothing had ever happened. A red gown clung to her figure, her proud smile radiating, her father walking beside her, shaking hands with the confidence of power. From across the room, Maria gripped her glass tightly, feeling like a stranger in a world that wasn't hers. James appeared at her side, murmuring, "Don't worry. Tonight, the truth speaks." When the crowd settled, James took the stage. "Thank you all for being here. Before we begin, there is something I must address." The hall fell silent, the spotlight fixed on him. "Rumors have been spread about me and my employee, Maria Lopez. These lies were created to destroy an innocent woman and an 8-year-old child. The person behind them is Victoria Hale." Gasps rippled through the room. Victoria shot to her feet, screaming, "You're insane! This is slander! No one will believe you!" James raised his hand. The giant screen behind him flickered to life, showing footage from the security cameras in his own mansion. The footage was undeniable. Victoria clawing at Maria's uniform, shoving her against the sofa. Another clip revealed Emily in the corner, trembling, her little hands over her face. And then, the moment that stole the air from the room, Maria hurling herself in front of her daughter, taking the strike meant for the child. The crack of the slap echoed through the speakers like thunder, freezing the entire ballroom in stunned silence. All eyes turned to Victoria. The whispers grew into murmurs of outrage. "No, it's fake. She stammered, her face pale. James didn't let her finish. The next slide displayed documents proving her father's embezzlement of charity funds, alongside sworn testimonies from other abused housekeepers. "This is the truth, and it's already in the hands of the police." At that moment, 2 officers entered. The judge froze, while Victoria shrieked, "James, you'll pay for this!" But no one believed her anymore. The cold click of handcuffs filled the air. Father and daughter were let out under the stunned eyes of the crowd. James set down the microphone and strode directly to Maria. His voice rang clear. "Maria Lopez is an extraordinary woman. She endured cruelty and silence only to raise her daughter with dignity. From this day forward, I will never allow anyone to humiliate or hurt them again." Maria stood frozen. Those words, spoken before hundreds of people, blurred her vision with tears. She had never imagined James would defend her so openly. In his eyes, she saw something she had never dared to believe. Respect, and deeper still, love. As the police escorted Victoria and her father out of the ballroom, the gala dissolved into chaos. Whispers spread like wildfire, countless eyes turning toward Maria. Her cheeks burned, her hands trembled. Deep inside, she wanted nothing more than to disappear. "James," she whispered, I need to leave. They're all looking at me as if I caused this." James stopped her, his gaze unwavering. "Maria, you're not going anywhere. You did nothing wrong. Because you stood strong, the truth came out tonight." She bit her lip, tears threatening to fall. "You don't understand. People will say I seduced my wealthy boss. They'll twist this story into something filthy, and Emily will have to bear those whispers." James held her hand gently, his voice dropping but filled with emotion. "Maria, I've lived in this world of lies my whole life. The money, the fame, the glamorous connections. It's all empty. But with you and Emily, I finally feel alive." Maria lifted her gaze, eyes blurred with tears. He continued slowly, as if afraid to break the fragile moment. "I don't care what they say. I only care that you're safe, that your daughter is happy. And I care about you, Maria, more than you realize." The world around them seemed to fade. Maria's heart clenched, torn between fear and longing. "James, don't." She shook her head softly. "You shouldn't say these things. We belong to 2 different worlds. And I can't let Emily be hurt by what people will think. James looked deep into her eyes and whispered, I'll protect both of you, even if I have to fight the whole world. Maria had no words. In the dim light of the ballroom, she saw not a cold, successful businessman, but a sincere heart reaching out to hers. The music shifted into a slow ballad, violins weaving tender notes through the grand hall. Couples drifted to the dance floor, moving gracefully under the golden chandeliers. James approached Maria, his eyes glowing with a softness she had never seen before. He extended his hand. Maria, he said gently, dance with me. Maria took half a step back, her heart pounding. James, I don't belong here. I don't know how to dance. I'll only embarrass you. He smiled, steady and sure. You don't need to know. Just let me lead. Her hand trembled, but she finally placed it in his. The touch sent a shiver through her. James drew her into his arms and guided her across the floor. Her steps, clumsy at first, fell into rhythm under his confident lead. Maria lifted her gaze and met his. In his eyes there was no trace of pity, no shadow of wealth or power, only raw sincerity, as if she alone was his whole world. Her breath caught, her pulse racing. Before she could turn away, James leaned in, his breath warm against her skin, and kissed her. Maria froze. For a second, she wanted to pull away. But his lips were warm, sincere, and the walls she had built for years began to crumble. She answered softly, shyly, yet with truth bursting from her chest. But the fear struck like lightning. Maria pulled back suddenly, breathing hard. No, I can't. I can't. Before James could stop her, she slipped away, fleeing the ballroom with tears streaming. Maria, wait, he shouted, running after her. But outside, she quickly hailed a taxi. By the time he reached the street, she was gone, leaving him standing helpless under the city lights. At home, Emily sat on the sofa, eyes wide with worry. Mom, why are you crying? She asked softly. Maria didn't answer. She only hugged her daughter tightly, tears soaking the child's shoulder. It's nothing, sweetheart. I'm here. The door burst open. James entered, breathless, his face etched with panic. Without hesitation, he rushed over and wrapped both mother and daughter in his arms. Don't run from me again, Maria, he whispered hoarsely. Maria shook, torn between resisting and surrendering. James, I'm scared. Scared of what people will say. Scared Emily will have to hear cruel things just because of me. He held her hand firmly, his eyes blazing with resolve. Listen to me. I don't care about their words. I only care about you two. I'll never let anyone hurt you again. Maria faltered, unsure. Emily looked up, her innocent eyes shining. And then her small voice broke the silence. Dad. The room froze. Both James and Maria stiffened. Tears spilled down Maria's cheeks, while James's chest tightened painfully. He bent down and held Emily closer. What did you just call me? He asked, his voice trembling. Dad, Emily said with a giggle, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, because you always protect me and Mom. Tears rolled down James's face. He looked at Maria, his eyes pleading, overflowing with emotion. Maria broke down, whispering through sobs. James, I do have feelings for you. I've just been too afraid to admit it. His smile trembled, radiant even through the tears. He cupped her cheek. Maria, you don't have to be strong alone anymore. Let me share the weight with you. Silence hung heavy. Then he whispered, Will you be my girlfriend? Maria gazed at him, tears still falling, but her lips curved into a trembling smile. Yes. At once, Emily squealed with joy, wrapping her arms around them both. James tightened his embrace, holding mother and daughter as if he would never let go. They cried, they laughed, and in that embrace, a new family began to take root. A year had passed since that chaotic night, and life for Maria, Emily, and James had transformed completely. No longer trapped in fear or weighed down by humiliation, they had found their way into the light. The graduation ceremony for her online degree was simple, held in a modest hall, but for Maria, it was the most important day of her life. Wearing her cap and gown, she stepped onto the stage to receive her diploma, her hands trembling. Applause echoed through the room, but none louder than the voices of James and Emily. The little girl stood on her chair, clapping furiously, shouting, "Mom, we're so proud of you!" James, sitting beside her, clapped until his palms turned red, his smile brighter than ever. Tears welled in Maria's eyes because she knew this achievement belonged not only to her, but to the family who had carried her through every trial. 3 months later, her dream took shape. On a quiet, historic street, a hand-painted wooden sign read, "Flavors of Home." Inside the restored colonial house was a cozy dining space filled with family photos, wooden tables, and the intoxicating aroma of mole and other traditional dishes wafting from the open kitchen where Maria worked with her small team. James had invested part of the capital, but insisted Maria hold the majority share. "This is your dream," he told her. "I just want to stand by your side." On opening day, lines stretched down the block. The press quickly picked up the story. From housekeeper to entrepreneur, the inspiring journey of Maria Lopez. Critics praised the food as both authentic and inventive. Within weeks, reservations were fully booked months in advance. Each evening, as Maria walked among the crowded tables, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses filling the air, her heart swelled. She thought of her late mother. Somewhere, surely, she was smiling, proud that her daughter had revived the dream of a family kitchen. One spring afternoon, beneath the blooming bougainvillea in the garden behind the restaurant, Maria wore a simple white dress. There was no extravagant wedding, no flashing cameras, only close friends, James's family, and Emily scattering rose petals along the aisle. James waited in a gray suit, his eyes shining brighter than any diamond. As Maria walked toward him, he took her hand and whispered, voice trembling, "I once thought love could only be found in glamorous places, among the glitter of parties. But I was wrong. Love lives in the simplest things, in your smile, in Emily's eyes. I've found my home, Maria, and it's with you and your daughter." Maria's tears fell as she smiled through them. "Thank you for seeing worth in someone like me. Now I believe, too, that we deserve this happiness." Emily darted between them, her little voice ringing, "Now we're a real family." Laughter rippled through the garden. In the golden afternoon light, the three of them embraced, knowing nothing could break this bond. Maria was no longer the silent woman enduring cruelty in the shadows. She was a proud businesswoman, a loving mother, and now a cherished wife. James was no longer the lonely millionaire. He had found the true meaning of life in love and family. And Emily, the little girl who once trembled in a corner, now shone with the brightest smile, for at last she had the complete home she had always dreamed of. And so their story did not end. It blossomed. What began in pain and fear had turned into love, trust, and the flavors of home that would linger not just for a lifetime, but for generations to come.